But we're going to talk hockey now. Jerry Hack joins us, and his book has been going great. Memoirs of a Hockey Nobody. He joins us from the West Coast. Look at this guy. Is that tie-dye you got on, Jerry? What are you rocking today?
My daughter made this for me, so
I love it.
What is a tribute to her, I wore it.
What does it say on it?
Red Dog Saloon in Alaska.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, hey.
Yeah, we took an Alaskan cruise a couple years ago.
Yeah, well, you played up there.
Yes, I did. And,
yeah. So as before we go any further, I've been telling all my friends about your book. You saw that I did a review on it, and I don't even know where to start. This is quite a story. Jerry came up as a floor hockey goalie in New Westminster, BC, answered an ad in a newspaper, and you came out here and played ice hockey, I guess, for the lack of a better term. I hate to sound like an American here, and you played senior, and I ended up watching you play live, and it's just a weird cosmic karma thing that happened, and I loved the book, and it's sold a lot of copies, obviously, around here, Jerry. So maybe tell your story, if you don't mind, in 5 minutes or less, and then I'll fire a few more questions at you, because it's a hell of a story.
Yeah, well, I couldn't play ice hockey when I was a kid growing up because my parents just couldn't afford it. And so after I got out of high school, I played street hockey with all my friends. I was a goalie, and I loved being a goalie. And so through a twist of fate, I ended up getting a tryout with a beer league team in summer hockey and made the team and, trying to learn how to skate and apply what I knew from street hockey to ice hockey. And it was quite an experience. It was a great journey.
Well, it's pretty remarkable, actually, and I got it for those that don't know. You really opened my eyes with your book to what senior hockey was in the 80s in this province. I think, was it you said or somebody in your book that it was minor pro hockey because we didn't have the Southern Pro Hockey League back then. We didn't have the Western Professional Hockey League. I don't even think we had the East Coast Hockey League that far back. So all those guys were playing senior hockey here and making pretty good dough. You were making pretty good dough. So to get into that league and play and then win a league championship, given your history, is one hell of a story. And by the way, I was thinking about this interview, Jerry. Scott Ray used to punch me in the face with his glove on in the dressing room, and I was only 15 years old. My brothers used to say, "Our little brother's so tough. Scotty, go punch him in the face. Watch." And he did. And I wouldn't go down. But to hear all those old names of yours, man, I just loved it.
Yeah, Scotty Ray, we had a bit of a history, me and him, and then he ended up playing for the same team that I was on. And I had to actually apologize to him because I punched him in the face one time so hard it staggered him back. And he's a big boy. So,
do you remember Brennan Ray that played for the Moose Jaw Warriors? That's his dad. And Scott is twice the size of Brennan. And actually, sorry to get hyper local with his interview for our viewers, but Jerry's talking about where I grew up. And I remember reading that book saying if Scott Ray would have played pro hockey, or he might have for a while, but before he played senior, but I'm like, you punched Scott Ray in the face with your blocker and lived to tell about it? How did that happen?
Well, I didn't know who it was at the time. It just kind of, what happened was another guy had run me, and when I kind of untangled myself from him, the referee, another guy put the puck in the net, and the referee called goal, and I got mad, and I went to go to the referee, and then I realized the guy that ran me was still laying there. So I grabbed my stick and I chopped him right across the ankle, and Scott Ray came. I didn't know it was him, and I just lashed out and punched, and I got him square in the nose and staggered him back. And then by that time, everybody got in, and referee had pushed my back to the boards, and they were all just yelling at me, and yeah, it was quite the brouhaha.
Well, I'll be honest, it was inspirational. So now that we're telling some of these stories, and I don't want to age Jerry, but as I'm reading his book, I'm like, I was at these games, like looking over the boards. I remember them being this high as a wee little kid, Jerry. But it's inspirational, actually. And then you left Assiniboia to go play up in Alaska, which was it senior or was it pro? Like, it's inspirational that you could go from playing floor hockey to basic pro hockey. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, well, there was 6 or 7 years of beer league hockey before that happened, and I got pretty cocky. I thought pretty high of myself, and I decided to try and take a shot at making some money at it. But yeah, I played 3.5 years in Saskatchewan, and I was in California for a couple months, and then I went to Whitehorse in the Yukon, and that was senior AAA. Whitehorse actually won the Allen Cup my second year there, but as I explained in the book, I didn't get to go to the tournament.
Yeah, and you were pretty upset about that, as I recall. But let me ask you how writing this book, did somebody say to you, you need to write a book, Jerry? Or like, how did that come to pass? And now that it's been out and it's made the Amazon top sellers list, like, how's it changed your life?
Well, it was funny because, like, I'm a pretty smart guy, I guess. I can string together a sentence, and but I never considered myself a storyteller. I just was goofing around on Facebook and telling these stories about my playing days. People kept saying I should write a book, and so I sat down at the computer and thought, I'll give this a shot. And I wrote the first couple of chapters and showed it to my wife. My wife's, it's hard to get her to laugh out loud or to show much emotion at all. Usually when I'm joking around with her, she just rolls her eyes in the back of her head and goes, "Oh God." And so, I let her read the first couple of chapters and she laughed out loud a couple of times. And then she started to cry. And so I thought, well, we might have something here. So I finished the book, and it's been just super positive reviews on it, and I'm getting messages from all over the world. It's been sold in Denmark and Australia, England, United States, all over the States, all over Canada. It's been amazing.
Yeah, well, and you didn't write it to get rich, I know. You just wrote it to write a book, and then you just go from there. But I really enjoyed it. You did a really good job, and I read a lot of books. I review a lot of books, and what I loved at the start, I'd never seen this before. You were like, in the introduction, I'm going to say some offensive things that happened in another time. So if you don't like it, stop reading. I'm like, wow, was that your idea? Or that's a pretty good disclaimer. I should open every show with that, Moose, is what I should do. Yeah. How did you get the idea to do that?
Well, I have a couple of gay family members, and I thought, it's just appropriate thing to do. I just knew that back then it was a different time, and we used those words commonly, and nobody thought another thing of it, and so I thought maybe, I better let people know what they're in for.
Yeah, well, it's like reading an episode of Spit and Chicklets in a way. There's a lot of dressing room talk from the 80s, right? I would be right in saying that?
Oh, yes. A lot.
Yeah. So, Jerry, where can people get your book, and what would you like people to know about Hockey Nobody?
It's available on Amazon and a few other Barnes & Noble and Indigo chapters. It's in a couple of bookstores locally, but not widely. And what I'd like them to know about it is it's just my story, and it's not like if you look on the best-selling list on Amazon, most of the hockey books are NHLers and they're telling their rags to riches stories, and mine's more of a rags to rags story. I didn't make it very far up the ladder, but I had a great time while I was doing it, and the book's a lot of fun. It has some life lessons in it as well, and it seems to be worth the read.
Well, it's a great story of perseverance and, as I said, inspiration. And of course, when it mentioned my area of the world, I definitely perked up. But Darren had asked me a while back about my hometown rink. Remember when you were asking me about that? And I said, the Diesel Dome in Milestone, Saskatchewan, Jerry. So you played in there. Can you just tell our viewers about, and I'm waving because the Zamboni left these diesel fumes behind. That's why we called it the Diesel Dome. And we had those pillars holding the roof up. So, right. So talk about playing in that barn.
I remember those pillars. Yes. Milestone had a pretty good team. I was my first year they had a team, and Darren Bobick was playing for them, and he had these white skates, and a couple of the other guys were expats and stuff. So it was. I remember that rink, and I remember the fans were pretty raucous. I heard a few insults that I hadn't heard before. So yeah, it was fun playing there. It was cold. It was cold.
I was one of them. Hanging over the boards, yelling at you, Jerry. So, but you blocked it out and you won a league championship. So, like I said, I love the book. You mentioned how people can get it. So I appreciate the time and thanks for coming on, my man. And I hope you're having a good summer out there in Vancouver.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. And I was listening earlier and you guys wanted to know the origin of my nickname.
I was just going to ask you.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, I was like I said, when I turned 18 and I started playing ice hockey, and I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't even know how to skate. I kept falling backwards, and I was all reflex and no technique, and so I had a few rough games where I'd let in a few goals. And after one particularly rough outing, I let in probably at least a dozen goals, and didn't stop very many. And this guy, Kelly Gladson, who had played junior, and he was a really good hockey player. He was sitting across from me as I'd taken off my equipment, and he's staring at me, and I'm like, kind of, what's up? And he goes, "You're a friggin' teabag." And then everybody stopped talking, and I said, "Teabag? What are you talking about?" And he says, "Everything goes through you." And then the whole room erupted in laughter, and then from that point on, I was Teabag, and I didn't really like the nickname at first, but I had to suffer with it, and eventually I just accepted it.
You're not supposed to like your nickname, but has it ever been confused for anything else?
Yes, it has a sexual connotation now, and I was actually at the rink one time, and I bumped into one of my teammates, and he was with his wife, and I said, "Oh, hey, Arnie," and he goes, "Hey, Teabag," and his wife goes, "Oh, gross! Why'd you call him that?"
There you go.
I had to explain it to her. Yeah.
Jerry, thanks for the chat, man. Keep in touch. I got your number here, so I'm sure we'll be talking down the road. But congrats on the book and the success.
Thank you so much, Rod. Thank you, Moose. Good to see you guys.
There you go. You. All right, the great Jerry Teabag Hack joining us from Vancouver. Author, Goalie to the Stars.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.